Good morning and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are looking at yet another Taiwanese oolong. This time we are looking at Ying Xiang, and I got this from Taiwan Leaf Tea. Ying Xiang translates as alluring or welcoming fragrance, which is a very appropriate name for this particular oolong. This started out as a 300-gram packet, perhaps doubling the height of the packaging from there, and I've already waded through that much of it in pretty short order, but I haven't yet reviewed it. It was released onto the market, so to speak, in 2004. It's a product of the Taiwan Research and Extension Station. It's TRES number 20. It's another one of the engineered, in the best sense of the word, cultivars produced by TRES. And I've seen some varying information as to the heritage of this tea, but the majority seems to be that it's a cross between Qing Xin and Jin Zhuan. Jin Zhuan providing a milky mouthfeel, at least in its native form, and Qing Qing providing the sort of majority of the body for the aroma for the tea. The one thing I will say about the practicalities of the tea in terms of why it was produced is that it's got drought resistance, it's pest resistant, and it can cope with growing well at low altitude without compromising the flavor intensity or the aroma intensity. So it's another one of these that, although not necessarily as well known as some of the others, has certainly got a lot of advantages to it. I've seen it available for sale from various areas of Taiwan, such as the very famous Shanli Shi. I've seen it in this green, as in low oxidation oolong form, and I've seen it as black tea as well. I've seen it spring and autumn/winter harvest. So it's got plenty of scope for usage. So let's move on to part two. We're going to take a close look at the tea and then we'll come back to try sampling it. Back in a moment. Here we are in part two, taking a close-up look at the tea in our Ying Xiang. Just a very brief word. The colour is fairly uniform. There are some slightly paler green bits and pieces. I'm sure some of that is dehydrated stem material wrapped into the buds, into the little beads, as I like to call them. Other than that, the beads are a lovely dark green colour. And although it's difficult to have a sense of scale like this, they're actually pretty large, which gives you some indication about the size of the leaves in question. So, pretty inviting looking, and now to part three. Hello again, welcome to part three of our video. Hello and welcome to part three of our video. You probably noticed that it looks a lot different in here than it did for part one. That's because I'm filming about 5 hours later. I've just been doing a whole catalogue of videos back to back. So now we're going to review our Ying Xiang. So as always, we're going to try it Western style, and then we're going to brew it ad-libbing, so to speak, Gongfu. So for the Western, everything is already brewed and prepared. 95 degrees centigrade, 1 gram per 100 mils of water for 3 minutes. I've noticed as I brewed this in the past, the leaves are quite small and they unfurl quite rapidly, so I don't want the water too hot, and I also don't want to steep them for too long. So let's see where this has got us. You may also remember that in the past I've said I'm trying to economize on the amount of tea that goes into these Western styles, because it just goes into the wastewater pot over here. But the reality is I enjoy this stuff so much that whatever I'm not going to drink just now, I'm going to put in a mug and drink off camera. So, spoiler, I really do like this tea. So, let's have a look at it first of all. Pale lemony yellow with a bit of green. It's a green oolong that's heavy on the floral. If some of them emphasize the fruit, this one, there's definitely some fruit there. but to me it's all on the floral. I've heard it described as orchid. I couldn't really tell you, but it's the floral that's front and center with this one, and it's really, really inviting. Yeah, the floral and a lot of sweetness, which always comes out on the cup. In fact, you know, there's so much of the floral that the freshness is, I would say, receded into the background with the fruit. It's very definitely floral front and center. Yeah, I would say that's about right for the brewing parameters. There's no bitterness, but it's not falling away too quickly from the palate. Touch more. Yeah. So let's put the remainder of this into a mug. Made too much for the mug, so a little of it will have to go in the wastewater jug. So now we're going to try Gongfu. I have here 6 grams of the leaves. For our Gaiwan, our cup again, our wide-brimmed strainer, and our transparent jug we've just been using. Because these leaves are quite small and they unfurl quite rapidly, we're going to keep these steeps shorter. We don't need 2 of the more extended ones. I think we'll only give this 20 seconds. See where that gets us. They're already starting to unfurl. We'll call that our first one. That's about 23 seconds. The fruit is there, so is the floral. About equal footing, I would say, equal booking, I was going to say. Yeah, floral and fruit. The colour's a little paler than it was Western, but not by far. So let's give that a try. In the meantime, let's get the next one steeping for 25. Yeah, some fruit and some floral in there. Very nice. Little thin. Obviously, it could take longer, but that's not really a surprise. This is 27. Oh, let's go for 30. See where that gets us. Yeah. The lid is saying the floral is coming through loud and clear. Colour-wise, little more yellow to that. And the floral has definitely come through. And the leaves, I don't know how well you can see this, if I give them a shugel, are about 70% of the way there to being steeped. So again, we can start bringing this down, and 20 seconds on that might get us a full flavour profile. So we'll get that up and running. So we'll give this 20. That's 20. Also gives it a little time to cool down while I drink the previous one. So that's steeping 3, this is steeping 2. That's come down to 20 seconds. That was 27 seconds. Oh yeah, it's a medley of fruit and flowers. Oh yeah. No bitterness, so it's not over steeped. Flavour isn't dropping off. Just The palette here is just full of flowers. It's remarkable. So this is steeping 3, a little more intense, but still a sort of pale yellow. Oh yeah, much heavier on the flowers and on the fruit. So I suspect this one's going to be full of flavour. Mouth is still full of flowers and fruit, especially flowers from steeping 2. Yep. Candy and flowers. Yeah, it just impacts the tongue with all these flowers. So we'll give that one last steeping. I should have kept up with steeping times. What temperature to go for? Let's go for 25. With extra sugars. Couldn't resist that. This is 25. Do you know, I don't know whether it comes from the floral aspect or the fruit aspect, but there is almost a pine quality to it. I don't know if that's the sweetness, but there's almost a sort of piney coniferous note as well. So this is steeping 4. That was 25 seconds on thoroughly unfurled leaves. So look how intense that colour is. That is a lot more to what you would just naturally call a yellow colour. There you go. That's it, bang on. That's just a straight up yellow colour. It's just a nose full of fruit and flowers. It's funny how the flowers have come through more, at least more immediately than on the Gongfu. But there you go. I wonder if this one's going to be more flowers. They're certainly there on the cup. Yeah. Yeah, and that pine note is there. Something about where the flowers and the fruit meet the sort of freshness, the greenness. There's a kind of note, there's a moment when it's sort of pine, but definitely lots and lots and lots of flowers. We're going to take a wee sip and then it's time to sum up. This time is pressing on. That's 10 minutes to me havering on about this. So it's not going to be any surprise to you to know that I think this is wonderful tea. And it was a revelation when I started it. There's always these 3 Fs, fresh, floral, and fruity, and there's always a which one's going to come out most. And it's flowers. There's a load of fruit in there, but the flowers are just so abundant. So on the taste note, it's fine, absolutely wonderful for me. Is it available? Yes. You can find it, once you start looking, you can find it in various guises. You can find it as black tea. You can find it in a spring harvest, a winter time harvest. That's one I have. I think I've already bought some of that for myself. And you can find it in various vendors. So it's quite easy to get hold of. It's just not something that you might be aware of. I certainly wasn't. And is it easy to brew? Western style, easy parameters. Eastern style, just be careful not to overdo it. These beads unfurl easily, maybe because they're small leaves. And they're also quite large, despite being small leaves. So I wonder whether that's something to do with how tightly rolled they are. So be careful not to oversteep, but it can take a relatively high temperature of 95. So, 3 out of 3. Hearty recommendation. So all it remains for me to do is to wish you happy steeping and to say, God bless.